Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second session of the Revit User Group at the Boston Society of the Architecture. Nice to meet you. I am Young Jin, and one of the co-chair of this group, alongside Nick Lima here. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those returning after our first session, we are excited to continue building this community together. One of the biggest challenges in our industry isn't just learning the new tools. It is adopting them effectively into the practice. Computational design has the power to transform workflow, but its impact depends on how well the teams integrate it into their day-to-day work. So this is why today's session is not just about showcasing the Dynamo script. It is about sharing strategy for driving computational design adoption in architectural practice. Today, I am excited to introduce our speaker, Jacqueline Warner, the Principal and Director of Technology at Pfluger Architects. With over 7 years at Pfluger, Jacqueline has been instrumental in scaling computational design, visual programming, and automation across the firm's workflow. Rather than me telling you more, I will let Jacqueline share her insight and strategy for making computational design a valuable and sustainable part of a practice. Please join me in welcoming Jacqueline Warner.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for Young Jen and Nick for asking me to present on this. Today, we're going to take you just a quick introduction of myself, a quick overview of what computational design is. Most of y'all on this call probably already know it, as you're probably in roles similar to mine. And Pfluger, the company I work for, has journeyed through that adoption process. I am a native Texan, so again, thanks for having me up there in Boston. And I am currently residing in Austin, Texas. I like to think Boston and Austin share some similarities, not just in our name, but our culture too. I got both my bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Texas at San Antonio, where I focused in historic preservation. And then I have over 18 years of experience in the architectural practice. And just some fun facts about me that kind of relate to the presentation today. I built my first computer when I was 10 with my brother, and I almost went into computer science as a profession, but I didn't want to copy him. So just being that rebellious, independent younger sibling, I decided to go into architecture of all things. How they relate, I don't know. I really love improving efficiency. I really have discovered through my career that I love mentoring and just helping people grow. I just love helping people in general. I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, lover of computers, games, books, movies. I could probably write a dissertation on why Gladiator is my favorite film and the greatest movie ever to me. I know it's all subjective. And I am also a self-proclaimed jack of all trades. I'm an avid traveler and I love animals. I am dog mom to 2 pugs and I foster animals regularly. So I'm also a data nerd, so if I fully believe that personality tests are just slicers into the data set that is the person, us. So if y'all are data nerds too and like personality tests, I put a couple of them down at the bottom that I have taken. And I'm the Director of Technology at Pfluger Architects. I have 13 years here, well, coming up on 13 years, about 12 years. And I manage both our IT and design technology. So both information technology and design technology. So a little bit of a unique role. So that's everything from our network and our equipment. I also make our financial business intelligence tools, do all of our software training and development, our content management, drone program, laser scanning, 3D printing, computational design. I have a running joke that if people in our profession, in our niche of the industry, as technology changes and gets adopted by architects, it just keeps getting added to the same person that is good with computers, I like to say. So it's definitely something that we have to learn to parse out to more than one individual because it's a lot to take on. A little bit about the firm that I work for, Pfluger Architects. We have been around since 1972. We were founded by James D. Pfluger. That's the father of Brad Pfluger, who's seen on the left in the photo. Let's see if I can show you on my mouse. On the left of the photo, he's our former CEO. Our new CEO, Terry Hoyle, is to his right. They're both great, awesome mentors that I've been lucky enough to have in my career. We are 133 employees, and we like to joke that we are a family with a PF, playing on Pfluger. And I really love the camaraderie here. It really is employee-centric. We take a family trip every year in which the company pays for the employee and the spouses and your kids to go to a resort. Most of them are in town or local to Texas. Once every 5 years, we go out of state. We went to Seattle a couple of years ago. We have 5 offices across Texas. Our main bread and butter is K through 12. That's our main market sector. And we are just ranked number 10 in the BDC's Giant 400 report. And then number 48 in all architecture firms in that same report. And we have about an annual revenue of $70 million. Now, I want to show this slide because it just shows how much we've grown in the last 5 years. I mean, just 5 years ago, we were only 59 employees, and we have grown substantially since then. So this plays into the factor of adoption of computational design, the new skill set into the practice. So, okay, so what is computational design? The definition is apparent in the name. It's leveraging the power of computation to enhance design construction process. Here are a couple of examples. I try to classify this as best as I could into different areas, as the analytical brains tend to try to do. We try to compartmentalize everything to understand it. So I have everything from geometric, so facade layout, something like you want a random brick pattern generation, all the way to documentation. Everyone loves text to uppercase. There's just so much human error that you could utilize, but the main bread and butter for documentation is door, head jam sill, or door, anything to do with doors, just because doors are so prone to human error and there's so many things to check on them. And then analytics, you can do everything from daylighting to egress simulation. That's something I'm really excited that we've started to do. And then generative design. So rather than you doing thousands of iterations, let the computer do it for you. And did I say 4? I meant 5, because as I mentioned earlier, all that technology that just keeps getting added to our plate every year. AI is technically, I would consider it as a form of computational design because you are leveraging the computer for it. And whenever anyone asks me what AI is, I always like to simplify it and say, you're just automating the automations. So you're taking all those things that we already built up and in computational design, and we are automating them again with, peppering in some LLMs. And tools that you would utilize, there's way more tools than this. This is just, again, trying to simplify everything down, the main tools. You have your functional programs that already do the computation for you. They have functions built into them to do them for you. And then you have visual programming tools that developers never move at the speed that we need them to. So we like to augment, supplement all of their functions that aren't doable, and then automate them using visual programming tools. And then eventually people also move to just straight programming and coding and not messing with those visual programming tools. Today, we're going to focus, we started in Dynamo, we're still in Dynamo. We've moved into programming and coding recently, but it's pretty much focused using Dynamo and Revit and Excel and all that stuff. Okay, so this is a long one because it's a long process, and I really wanted to show it from the very start because I kind of felt like it's messy, but that's what stuff is sometimes, and don't be afraid to just start somewhere and be messy. That's what I did. There's nothing perfect here whatsoever. I kind of feel like I've thrown everything against a wall to see what sticks, and I'm happy to share it out with others. That way they don't have to go through the same process that I did and take as much time. So it all started in 2015 when I attended my very first Autodesk University, when I was exposed to Dynamo and I took a class in it. I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, this can change things. I was back in using AutoCAD. I was like the Lisp routine girl. So I was like, oh my gosh, Dynamo, this is even better, like blows my mind. So then, as everyone does, they learn a new skill and they immediately don't use it. So the next year I had to promptly relearn it all again at AU 2016. And then that's whenever I finally first started developing my scripts. But then, oh, this all plays into it later on. I got handed IT to take over. And so that kind of derailed me a little bit. And then I had to, the following year, I finally gained approval to start a Dynamo training program. And then the next year, COVID happened. And in addition to that, I got more stuff added to my plate. I got the making all of our financial BI tools. Then COVID's still a thing. And then, like most things with budgets, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I had to regain approval again to start the Dynamo training program. But then it started to pick up. So we started the program, then everyone started to see the proof was in the pudding, all the case studies, hired some extra staff, started outsourcing things, and have been gone from there. Okay, so here's an overview of the steps that I took and how I've kind of arranged this next section. So first I needed to plan and structure the program. And then what do you do? I don't know. This is where I said I throw everything against the wall. Is it one person? Is it a team? Are they billable? Are they overhead? Do you develop in-house or do you outsource? I've done all of them. And so I just took that same timeline that I showed you and I identified, it started with just me and I was still billable. I wasn't overhead at that point. And then eventually we joined it with a team. Then whenever people started seeing the return on investment, then I got more approval for more funding and we started to be able to hire more overhead staff. And then we started to be able to augment and supplement with outsourcing because at this point we're already behind. Next, you need to convince leadership. Really, it's not that hard to convince leadership if you just do a couple of steps. Develop a few basic graphs. I mean, they're all out there on the internet for free. Like, that's why I love open source platforms and stuff like that, because it's all about a community of learning and engaging. And you can go out there, you can try to make your own, you can contact people if you hit walls. Just develop a few basic graphs that are out there. Text to uppercase is a great one. That's super basic, but saves a ton of time. And then apply that to a couple of projects, get some case studies in there, and then estimate the return on investment. And then after that, the return on investment solves itself. So I did all this. My very first return on investment estimate was about what I projected, what it actually came out to be in 2022. It was about 60% was what I imagined. And so what person doesn't want a 60% return on their investment? Like, that's a no-brainer to go after that if you're a business person. So, or somebody who has a 401k. I would love 61% on my 401k return. And then you can just see the actuals next to that and just how it exponentially increases because the more things that you produce, the less time you spent in the beginning producing them, and it just continues to go up. Now, eventually we're going to plateau, but at least for that first part, we're still going to be having a significant return on investment in this. Now you need a training program. So what I had to do first, because even though I got approval to do the training, we did not have a lot of people sign up. So I had to go out and I had to recruit people. And it was really important to me that I had representation, one person from each office, because I wanted a champion in every office to spread the word, get people using it. The other thing was that I fully recognized that in learning this myself, that this is very much a left brain, right brain kind of case. We're in a profession that is predominantly right brained. As architects, like, we went to school to design, to innovate, all that kind of stuff. We didn't really go to analyze and do a whole lot of logic thought processes. So where I've found success is, or just an observed pattern, is that a lot of people who changed careers from an engineering career or something that was more logistics, analytical based to the architectural field, they tended to excel in this program a lot more, and they were the better adopters, and they're always my star pupils and the ones pushing it out to everyone. It's not to say that you can't do it if you don't have that background. It's, again, just an observed state of our journey. Expectations. So then I had to set the expectations to everyone. It's gonna be hard. We're not used to this. This is not something we do every day. But it's okay. We're gonna get through it today. We'll be struggling together. And then you have to treat joining this program like a commitment to producing a deliverable. So it's got to be treated like a project. And so I gave them deliverables to produce. This one, it helped them attend and held them accountable. But twofold, we got products, deliverables produced that we could use on other projects during the training program. So again, you're just like, you're expanding that ROI, and you're just tightening up that initial cost, that built-in cost. And then also you present it out to the firm. You present all those graphs or scripts out to the firm. Sorry, I interchange the word graphs and scripts a lot. And then so the curriculum of what we did, we held 2-hour classes or workshops every other Friday, basically just 2-hour meetings every other Friday. Started as classes, moved on to workshops for everyone working on their deliverables. And that started with the brainstorming session where we had to pick first solutions. And that's a really important process, because a lot of people, when you don't understand fully what it is, you haven't been exposed to it, you don't know what you're asking for. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So it took a little guidance and guiding everyone to pick out a solution that was, one, it's appropriate for applying it in a visual programming tool, but then 2, making sure that it was attainable within their skill set. So I don't want someone thinking that they can generate the whole entire build a script that generates the whole entire building or does generative design scripts whenever they don't even know how to, import data from Excel. So that was a very important step. Now, to actually the course that we use, like the actual material, we used Dynamo Primer. It's honestly pretty awesome. There's exercises built into it, so you don't have to come up with any of that stuff yourself. You can just follow along. And I did that the first year. I taught it the first year. And then after that, we started hiring consultants to do it. And they pretty much did the same thing. They had different exercises that they baked in, but it all progressed in the same way. And then I can't stress it enough, like, have pre-baked exercises. At first, I just used the Dynamo Primer exercises, but I practiced them first, and I had a starting graph, and then I had an ending graph. So that was just a really important lesson learned, and something that's important to build into your curriculum. Is really important to put homework in there, because the span of 2 weeks, a lot of stuff comes up. Some people had to miss the weeks. So homework, and then you just review it the next day in class. And then having everything developed for Dynamo Player for the end user was very important in our training too, because that's a whole piece of it that a lot of people who mess around in a visual programming tool, they're just doing it for the quick generation, for them thinking of themselves. You really have to have everyone come at it from the approach of a software developer, thinking about user interface, how they actually progress through the directions of it. So the instructions to the end users were also really important, a really important step. So some examples of somebody who's gone through that whole process of the program at Pfluger, some of the things that they did after the first 6 months. So room to center, where you just take that room geometry node and you push it to the center of the geometry of the room. You then take the tag and you push it to the center of the geometry of the room. You match the room to the ceiling height that is adjacent to the room. Another one is auto-aligning views on a sheet. Tagging walls that only have a type mark. If y'all have ever used the Revit function, tag all, you even tag walls that don't have anything listed in their type mark. Program room import. So we have a space program document that we then take and we push unplaced rooms into Revit with. And there's a bunch of other associated parameters tied to those rooms that we needed to retain that information on. So we developed a script that just takes the information from Excel and puts it in unplaced rooms in Revit. And then that also operated as a check. So that way, as somebody's building out that model, they make sure that they've included every single one of those rooms that was in the program. Okay, lessons learned. So really all roads lead to adoption. Again, I try to categorize all of my lessons learned into banks, but really if it boils down to one thing, it's just getting people to adopt it. So all of these kind of led to the adoption process. So a big thing, you need support from leadership. And most people think like, oh, that's the owner of the company or the board of directors, that top tier of leadership. So in our case, the CEO, the COO. Really what we discovered is it's every single level, because the CEO, if they're on board, that's awesome. That's your first step. But then by the time it trickles down and you get all the way down to the PAs and the PMs, sorry, just missing something from my screen. By the time you get all the way down to the PAs and the PMs, and in our company, the PAs are actually the ones responsible for assigning tasks and staffing out the projects with the architectural staff. So that, by the time you get from the CEO to the PA, there's a huge disconnect there. So if any one of those layers of accountability is broken, you're really gonna curtail your adoption process. So we really started to see the most adoption when we finally trickled down to that PA level for adoption. And next, the expectations from leadership should be for everyone. So not just the I'm calling them the developers, the people that attended the program, that got trained and are producing all of these scripts or graphs for everyone to utilize, but the expectation should also be on the users to use them. And that was a very big lesson learned for us. And to do that, you've got to have an accountability process. And this one took us a couple of years to flesh out. We recently released these project checklists where people are graded on whether or not they are completed and done on their projects. And so all of our different scripts or solutions are integrated in this checklist. As I go through the different steps, it's identified Dynamo, so that way somebody can reach out, go to our library, or reach out to one of the people that's familiar, a subject matter expert in that group. And then we've also incorporated it into our company goals. It's a company-wide goal that all of our projects are utilizing our lists of scripts. And then it's also, because it's in the company goals, and if you tie those together, it then propagates down to people's individual goals, their personal goals, which is tied to their bonuses. So again, just having a comprehensive accountability process is a very big lesson learned. Capacity and opportunity. So this goes back to my timeline and how I got so many things added on to me, and then not being able to address the task at hand, the one that was, originally planned. And so just be aware of that. And one of my suggestions that I would be is, in architecture, I feel like we tend to like, oh, well, that person, like, I'm good with computers, you can do it, kind of a thing, rather than just going out and hiring that subject matter expert that can come in there and just hit the ground running. Don't get me wrong, it was a very fulfilling process, but if I could do it all over again, I would do it differently, and I would hire someone from the very beginning to push this out, rather than spreading my focus, which slowed down the progress. Learning and development. So one, it's got to be mandatory. You got to treat it like a project. I think I've already mentioned this because I can't stress it enough. The other thing was that it's hard, and a big lesson learned that, I'll share with everyone. Everyone that attended for the first time, they repeated. Don't get me wrong, they managed to produce things, but they tended to, the next year, they asked to repeat the same training. So that was a big lesson learned, and I've never had a single person that said that they didn't want to repeat the training. So you kind of have to do it twice. I mean, heck, I did it twice. you know, without even realizing it until I put this presentation together, I was like, oh yeah, I actually got trained twice too. So it makes a lot of sense. We're not trained for this. This is not what we went to school for. It's not where our brain naturally goes. Developers and end users. So not only the people doing the courses, you're doing the learning development for them, but you've got to train the end users in how to use the scripts. So that was always built into every single one of our presentations out to our office. The people doing the presentation would go through the steps that they needed to take to run the scripts that they've developed. And then use it as an opportunity, again, increase that ROI, cross-functional training. So you're training them in leadership skills too. You're training them in presentation skills. So this is cross-functional training. It's not just for Dynamo or visual programming. And then training and producing. So I took this approach just this year. I added in, I mean, they're already producing the 2 scripts for us, so that helps. But then this year, what I added in is the more years that you have the program, you need to update your graphs as different versions of Dynamo and Revit come out. So we started baking in as part of the training that they need to update somebody else's graph that they did not build. It was also a great, you know, built in QA/QC, and it also it did a little double whammy of training them at the same time. Internal marketing. So another thing we did not go to school for, and this is a whole thing that I kind of want to take to Autodesk University as just a roundtable discussion or something about how we're expected to be marketers. So don't think that it's another skill set that you have to learn on your own. I mean, we're great researchers and we're very capable of building our skills ourselves. However, leverage your internal marketing department that you have at your work. They probably have younger staff that they could then cross train and use it as an opportunity to you know, scale them up. And then repeat marketing. So this is where my, again, movie nerd, Glengarry Glen Ross, where they have the ABCs, always be closing. I like to say always be selling. So I made the ultimate blunder the first time where I thought saying it once was enough. And like, oh man, I've already told you where that thing is. Why do I have to say it again? No, it's the same thing as running or trying to market a business. You've got to continually market it, let people know you're out there, keep them informed of where you're going, all that kind of stuff. Repeat marketing, I can't say enough about it. And don't oversell though. That's a big thing. A lot of people say that they're going to save you so much time and it's going to be so easy. And that is not what I do at all. I always tell everyone like, hey, this is going to be buggy. Dynamo is buggy by nature. All visual programming is buggy, but if I save you 8 hours total, let's say one day it's buggy and it sets you back an hour trying to debug or get me to come help. I'm still saving you 7 hours. So it's still a great return, even with dealing with a couple of bugs and hiccups. And then feedback loops are really important. We always want to be improving. If you're not improving and growing, you're dying. So that's just a great thing. And always encouraging everyone to ask for help, never making anyone feel like they're dumb or that they don't know what they're doing. Like this, again, it's not what we went to school for. Our brains don't naturally progress this way. So it's really awesome just to encourage that feedback. And then monetary incentives. So we work to make money. And so I am not ignorant to that fact. And I do as much as I can. I try to offer prize money for people that do things like what we program that we're kicking off this year is that our developers, the scripts that they developed this year, the more projects that they get to utilize them, they're going to win $1,000. And so that's, you know, just does a bunch of, it's marketing, right? It gets them to start pushing their scripts to their friends like, hey, see what I developed. I could really help you on this. And it's because it incentivizes them. And then also incentivizing the end users. We have a thing that you use your first script, you get $100. So there's a lot of different ways that you can incentivize people to gain adoption. And it's probably the easiest because it's really $1,000 for the year to gain adoption of something that you've invested, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in. It's not a lot. Okay, roadmaps. So big lesson learned. I'm still developing this one. So right now our roadmap is internal and I use it in OneNote. I love OneNote. And we have an in development list, we have an up next list, and we have an identified for kind of wish list sometime in the future. I need to publish that out to users because it really helps set their expectation of what they can expect. And it also encourages that feedback loop for what we should be prioritizing, like what people will find the most value on in their projects to help us pick what we stop and start. Also publish dates to keep holding you accountable, to treat it like a project deadline. Can't say that enough. I mean, we are in a profession where we are deadline driven, and we're phenomenal at that. We have the most amazing ability to procrastinate and then dive in and make that deadline happen. So really do leverage that, treat it like a project, but publish the dates to everyone to keep you accountable, because otherwise with internal initiatives, it's really easy for those dates just to push down the line if they haven't been broadcast somewhere. And then do a refresh of your original plan, your goals with a retrospective. So lessons learned, figure out how you can change the program, adopt it. In our program, we used to do 2 days a week, every other week, just for the program alone. This year, we did something a little different because we're trying to make the learning process, we're trying to streamline that process. So we did 1 full day of training, and then after that, we're doing every other week, but we're doing one-on-one sessions with people. And I have a theory that this is gonna be better for people's learning. It's just a theory, right? Taking something, sticking it against the wall, see if it, or putting something against the wall, see if it sticks. So I'll let you know how that goes next year. So we're doing, that's why just continually, and then on top of that, just refresh your goals. Like I started out, I just wanted to build the program and I just wanted to get scripts and save people time. And now it's like, where can I go from this? How can I now automate my automations? How can I make it easier for people to find the resources? So always refreshing and having retrospectives is great. Resources. So the first things first, I mean, I can't say this enough, and I probably should have made this its own slide, but packages. Packages, if you don't have a way to automatically push out packages to every endpoint, all of your end users' computers, it's gonna really decrease adoption, because that's the first killer, is that they don't have the packages to run the script. And especially if you're doing all of your development with Dynamo Player in mind, to where people aren't going to be getting into the graphs and being able to troubleshoot them, having the packages installed on their computers is paramount. So set that up with work with your IT person. It's a pretty easy push out through GPO. And then next, your library and index. I started out with an Excel list. I personally love Excel, but I find that my brain is more on the analytical side, and everyone that's more on the right brain side, it's not the greatest thing. So it's something that I'm coming to terms with. I always say Excel is like my love language. I could jam out on an automated Excel document. But so what we eventually ended up doing is that picture below is we developed a graphic table to represent the different phases of design and where the scripts could be used in that phase of design. And sometimes you would run the scripts multiple times in different phases. So that proved to be really helpful whenever people saw it in this way. And then you need to track usage. You gotta go back to your leadership, to the board, to the people controlling that money, and show them how much time you saved, how much time everyone saved. And then also you need to find pain points and improve your process. Tracking usage is paramount. You can do it yourself. You can build it into all your graphs. There's lots of resources out there on the web for you to do that. What we actually ended up doing is we're using a product called BIMbeats, and because we're using it for more than just tracking use of packages, it does way more than that, but that's one of the facets in which it pays for itself. And then the other thing, I alluded to this earlier, don't be afraid to outsource or hire staff to do that job earlier on. Sometimes you just need to augment. You got a huge project workload increase. That's something that we've encountered when you saw our growth and the scale of our growth. So we were able to outsource and then start. I'm not a programmer. I can dabble. I can probably reverse engineer some stuff, but I can't generate something myself, and I don't have the time. So we hired a software developer that is basically a consulting software developer to come in and program the buggy Dynamo graphs, and they're making them into our own Revit add-in for us. And with that, that is my presentation. Sorry, I flew there pretty quick. It is raining outside, so I'm kind of paranoid of getting cut off here, my power cutting out. But I included a couple of resources for y'all if you wanted to learn more about computational design or just connecting with people about it. There's a couple of conferences. Advancing Computational Building Design is a great one. Oh my gosh, I attended that one and it blew my mind. I was like, I thought I knew stuff and I know nothing after attending that conference. And then Autodesk University is always a good go-to conference for learning about anything and everything Autodesk platforms. And then some great people to follow that are really active in the community and you'll learn a lot from are listed on the left. And with that, we've got quite some time for questions. Oh, Young Jin, you're muted.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your insightful experience, Jacqueline. And so
Great presentation. Great presentation. Thank you, Jacqueline.
and then if you want to receive the AICE credit, please check the link in the chat. And also, do you have any other question for Jacqueline?
I'd put some questions here, but I'd like to see if there's any user questions or participant questions first. You can take those. Or I can kick it off too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the questions was on the bonuses, but I think you answered it in that next slide where there's monetary reward for like executing the program and how the utilization of the scripts, which I think is a great way.
So it's actually
to,
both. It's actually two. It's included at your end of year bonus. That's, for performance. So it's tied into performance. And then in addition to that, I offer spot, incentives like those I like to call them prizes. So.
Yeah, it's a great way to get people to actually join the program and then be involved as well. Money talks, right? So
Money talks.
and then I was wondering what is the best way to manage that internal marketing? Like, is this something that the individual does and starts to, you just said don't oversell, but they spread the word, or do senior staff promote on their projects, or do you do like an internal lunch and learn to get the word out? Like, what's kind of the process there?
Yeah, so I've tried everything. I mean, like the people spreading it, like I said, my idea after attending a lot of Autodesk University conferences and just seeing what other people were doing was grassroots. And I saw this whenever Bluebeam first came out. I was trying to get people to adopt it and they were resisting so much. And then I got one person to really be my champion. And he was working with people and people saw how much time he was saving and how easy it was, and it spread like wildfire. And so I took the same approach here. And so really trying to do the grassroots marketing. So people seeing it in action, seeing how much time they can save. And then in addition to that, the monetary incentives, I'll try anything working with marketing to help come up with campaigns. Just go to them and say, hey, I've got a problem. Can you help me? Most people want to help if you just ask them. And unfortunately, most people don't like to ask for help. So I would just say, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Cool. And then one last question I had was, how do you make the decision when to outsource versus doing work internally, and what parameters do you evaluate when you're making that decision?
So there are a couple of factors. I love a good cost analysis. Oh my gosh, I live in Excel. I love it. And so running one of those was really helpful in helping me determine whether or not I needed to outsource it. But there's a lot of other factors that come into play, right? It's not just showing someone like, hey, here's my cost analysis. I can save us a lot of money. You really have to have leadership that's really supportive of it. And so thankfully at Pfluger, we have a culture of learning. And so we give employees 4 hours a week for professional development of overhead time for them to spend. So that was really important. So it's really your leadership does, and your culture contributes to it a ton as well.
That's cool. So in the 4 hours, you could see what employees are accomplishing versus what we need to outsource or something like that.
Yeah. So you could, well, in that cost estimate, you could see like, okay, do I have enough employees to fund this with those 4 hours, or their skill set is at the beginning that was fine because we only needed entry level, but now we've got people that have grown to a point that we need people that are at a higher skill level, and it didn't make the sense to invest in that kind of training. It made more sense to keep them on projects with that supplemental understanding of the product, and then hire like a subject matter expert that can come in there and do the more technical, more advanced scripts that we needed to generate.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer.
So Jacqueline, I have some specific question about the training sessions. How do you treat the senior architect and junior architect differently?
I in the training itself,
In
I
the
don't.
training, yes.
Yeah,
You don't?
they
Oh.
they all get taught at the same level.
Same level.
Yeah, same level. As I start noticing more of an aptitude, I mean, I guess with any teacher, as you notice, or any instructor, you can tell whenever people aren't getting it. And so I would just spend extra time with them. I'd contact them. I remember this one employee that we had. I really saw a lot of potential in her, and she was hungry for it. So I'd stay until like 8 o'clock at night, and I would just give her some one-on-one sessions just because I saw that she could go really far. So yeah, senior or junior level staff members, it really didn't matter. We had some senior level people that joined, and they picked it up immediately. And then some that didn't. So I don't treat the level of where you are in your career as much as like, it's really about how much you want to learn and utilize the tool is what I found.
Interesting, because when I was leading the computational group in my previous firm, I actually hit a lot of the some wall to resolve some kind of the generation gap, because the senior architects, they actually not familiar with some kind of the visual scripting, and then also the data migration, and also the more importantly, the nature of their job is somewhat different from the the job of junior architects. I mean, some people is actually told me that kind of automating the room number or the door tag is not my job. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
how did you actually successfully deal with those kind of the problem?
It's really just showing them the proof is in the pudding. I mean, to simplify it, once they saw how much time they could save their staff, or their staff could save on a project, and especially now with our workforce, it's getting harder and harder to find staff. And mainly I attribute that to the recession, and a lot of people changed professions. There's a big skill gap there. It tends to sell itself. Like I said, the ROI, it really sold itself, but also all of those other things that I was doing that I mentioned about the internal marketing, the repetitive marketing, just keep on keeping on, going into projects and really finding a champion in that project that will, you can go in there. And we did a lot of stuff that was meant, as a group, it was meant to apply to multiple projects. But what I didn't mention is, as a company, when people started seeing it take off, they started commissioning us. They started coming to the design technology department and saying, hey, I've got this problem. I've got a really large project. I've got a really short deadline. Can you do something to automate this for me so I can save time? So making those bespoke solutions for projects. And actually the seniors were the ones that were more inclined to ask us to fix it for them. they didn't necessarily want to get in there and do it themselves. So maybe that's probably what you're relating to, but they at least came to us and had us build a solution out for them, which I think it helped. And having that culture of learning, I think it really helps push that to where
Mhm.
people aren't afraid to come and ask for help where they want to learn about it, even if it's just learning how to use it or learning how they could use you to use it. Like it's it it really helps to have that foundation.
Gotcha, gotcha. This is my last some kind of technical questions, Jacqueline. And when I create a bunch of the Dynamo scripts and then share them via Dynamo Player, and then I had a lot of the complaint. None of your script is working for me. I think that happened because, for instance, is kind of the type parameters, right? And then some people is put some name and then a dash and then another text, something like that, instead of the underbar. But
Yeah.
my script is actually designed to recognize the underbar instead of the dash. So those kind of the things can happen, right? And then I think in order to employ this kind of the computational design to the across the company, I think that the standardization should be happening first. What do you think about that?
So the first question, I guess the issue was about the getting like the syntax errors, I guess,
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And so, well, we experienced that same exact thing, and there's nothing that I think I would say is the answer. But I learned this later on is I needed to start building in checks. So after someone ran a script, if it failed or something, it would tell the end user why it failed. So it was just about that user building in that user experience or giving them an Excel spreadsheet that said, hey, all these things worked and these ones didn't push out. Or build if it's contingent upon a parameter name, having that built into the script in the beginning where you're going to make those parameters for them from the get-go, and then it'll go from there. So we tried to mitigate it with some of those solutions. And then secondly, getting your second question was getting ideas, the ideation and the start about what to actually produce scripts for. Was that your second question? I think for us, again, that feedback loop that I mentioned. So I didn't specifically state this, but we send out a survey to our staff every year before we start the training and say, hey, we're about to start training people on this. Is there any tool that you'd wish that one of them would make for us? To that way they can learn and build a tool for you. So that way we get some ideas from general staff that will push them to using it more because we've now just developed a solution that was personalized for them.
Okay, good to know. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then I hope actually Jacqueline's insight is also helpful to your practice too. And so before thank you again for your time and sharing the insight again.
Yes, thank you.
Before we
course.
actually leave today, I actually have the exciting announcement for our third session. Nick, do you actually share a little bit more detail about that?
Yes, definitely. Very exciting session. Nerva at CBT has offered to provide the Revit Users Group with a tour. It's going to be exploring CBT's cutting edge technology, VR, AR, and beyond. So they have a really quite impressive virtual reality room and augmented reality tables that during their design process, various stages of the design process, they're using these technologies, and we will be taking that tour. March 11th, we're trying to create consistency the second Tuesday of every month. So March 11th from 3:30 to 5, I think. But just look out the next few days. There'll be a registration on the BSA website.
Great. So excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay, let's go to your day. Thank you very much, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.